Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Blake Creamer, and in this podcast, I'm going to be rolling you through the top 10 centers for fantasy hockey in the 2025-26 season. I'm talking points leagues and category leagues. I want to get right into it. Let's get to biz. Oh, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and I'm your host, Blake Creamer. Give me a follow over on X/Twitter at Blake Creamer AG. I really appreciate that. And yeah, you're getting another sick podcast here. Our family has been smashed with some illness over here, and I'm just kind of at the tail end of it here. So yeah, bear with me and my voice here. I'm going to do my best, but the show must go on. I got to get this information out to you here, and I'm pretty excited. Yeah, things are really ramping up. I mean, we've had some fantasy news, some pretty crushing fantasy news actually. So we'll be talking about that a little later. Speaking of centers here for fantasy hockey, but yeah, it's been really good, and I'm excited to get into this with you. So without further ado, let's do it. At number one, we're looking at Nathan MacKinnon. Oh yeah, MacKinnon over McDavid. Yeah, that might be controversial here, and I get it. But I think McDavid is probably the best player in the world, in my opinion. But for fantasy, I think that MacKinnon does things a little bit differently and gives you a little bit of a different value. So I'll make an argument here over why I would take MacKinnon over McDavid in a points league, right? Check this out. I think the main thing for me that MacKinnon does differently is he shoots the puck a hell of a lot more, right? I mean, MacKinnon was second in the leagues last year in shots on goal, and he had 3 fewer games than Pasta did, David Pastrnak, who was the league leader. And that's currency, right? That's currency in a lot of these fantasy leagues with decent points values to shots on goal, right? But it also means more chances to score. I think that's common sense, but it's not something we should be overlooking, right? Time on ice for McDavid and MacKinnon, very similar. Hits are comparable. I think MacKinnon is probably going to block more shots. And I would also argue that MacKinnon has a better surrounding cast in Colorado, and it's pretty much superior to what McDavid has in Edmonton, even with Draisaitl there. I also think that we didn't see the full Mac. We didn't see full MacKinnon last year. He got longtime line mate Mikko Rantanen moved out of town, right? He got traded. Now we got Martin Necas in there, and he's a completely different player than Rantanen. I think that was always going to take a bit for them to figure each other out. And you look at McKinnon's 5-on-5 statistics, and they suffered a little bit last year. And I think likely due to that very thing. At least that's a factor. His shots were way down on the power play as well. I think, maybe he felt that he had to facilitate things a little bit more than he used to when Rantanen was there. And I think either way, it wasn't insignificant. He went from 19.4 shots on goal per 60 on the power play to just 12.7. So, that's shaving quite a bit off the top there. I expect a healthy squad here with the Avalanche, and I think Mac is going to get back to his shooting ways and kind of work on that chemistry there with Necas. They've got Brock Nelson on the power play there as well, which is an interesting piece. But yeah, that Colorado power play is going to be a wagon. Something else that I like about MacKinnon over McDavid, I think, is that the Avs fantasy playoff schedule is better than the Oilers. And that's not nothing. That's something when two players are close, that's something that can help you as a deciding factor. So in weeks 21 to 23, the Avs play 11 games with 6 off nights, which is really good. And the Oilers play just 9 games with 0 off nights. So yeah, it's great to have McDavid, but if he's not playing when you need him the most, it's going to be pretty painful. So I just think it's tough when your number one player isn't playing. It's kind of like a micro edge that is going to potentially make the difference here between these two players because they're both in a tier of their own. So, all that said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you need to pick MacKinnon over McDavid. It's a personal preference. McDavid does have that nuclear option where he can pop for like 160 points. And I don't think that MacKinnon has that ceiling. So there's definitely arguments for both. For reference, in my Cupful League, I've been drafting that the last week here. I had first pick and I took MacKinnon. So it's definitely viable out here in these fantasy hockey streets. Definitely feels weird to have, McDavid at number 2, but I love what McKinnon is bringing to the table, and I like that surrounding cast and the fantasy playoff schedule. So that's what we're doing. Book it. We're taking Mac over McD, and now we got to talk about McD. All right. He's the number 2 on the list here. Pretty much a 1A, 1B situation. What can we really say? It's McDavid, right? But before I move on here, I should talk about our, I forgot about this, but our projection for Nathan MacKinnon here for this upcoming season. We've got 42 goals, 79 assists, and 121 points. That's in 82 games. All our projections are for 82 games. So, 121 points. Mac, it's awesome, right? It's in the wheelhouse. 367 shots on goal, 54 hits, 56 blocks, so the periffs are great, and then 39 power play points. I think that Mac has a little bit of ceiling there too. He could be a 40 to 45 point power play player as well. So that's our projection for McKinnon. Now let's talk about McDavid. We know what to expect with McDavid. I think we've also all seen this interview, right, where McDavid talks about getting back to shooting more, being more of a goal scorer, right? And that should really get us pretty juiced, honestly. And I love a good narrative. Coach Knobloch has revealed that he plans to start the year with McDavid and Draisaitl on the same line with that beauty Trent Frederick of all people. I don't understand, but I guess you got a board battle guy, you got a forechecker, he can do that and get the puck to these studs. But I do think that Knobloch is going to split McDavid and Dry as the season progresses. He always does. But I also did a quick with or without you. With McDavid and Dry over at Natural Stat Trick. And it's exactly what you would expect, right? So when together at 5-on-5 last season, McDavid and Draisaitl absolutely caved in the opposition, right? As expected. They had a 66% Corsi for percentage, so tilting the ice. They had a 67% expected goals for percentage, which is nuts, and a 63% actual goals for percentage. So they were scoring at will out there. It was a matter of time. Away from each other, those percentages dropped about 10% each, right? Which is still great because these are great elite offensive players, but nothing close to the magic when they're together. The problem is, how do you get production from the other lines, right? They need to split these guys up to balance it out. They only spent 400 minutes together at 5-on-5 and spent around 750 minutes apart from each other last season, right? And it remains to be seen if the Oilers supporting cast is sort of up to the task. We got some interesting young pieces where you got Ike Howard, we got Matthew Savoie, as well as Andrew Mangiapane, Kasperi Kapanen, right? Pod Colson when he comes back. Zach Hyman as well, as he's out until November at least. So McDavid and Dry are going to have to run it as usual. And I think they can. They've shown it before. The Oilers in general have played a ton of hockey over the last 2 seasons with the playoffs. And I wonder too if there's going to be any load management shenanigans with Dry and McDavid in particular towards the end of the season. And that does worry me a little bit. Again, we're looking for those micro edges with these 2 players. And I think that Mac has a slight edge here, right? In a roto league, with no playoffs, and you're just tally up at the end of the season, I think I'd be happier taking McDavid there for the ceiling that he has. I think that makes a lot of sense. But, in head-to-heads, I feel more comfortable with McKinnon. Contract year McDavid here, Stanley Cup or bust McDavid, it could be massive, right? If he truly does, go nuclear the way he can. Like we saw what that looks like. He scored 64 goals in 2022-23. It was massive. He had 351 shots. And, he really hasn't come close to that since. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, McDavid just can go nuts and you'd be happy drafting him. So it's kind of a fun decision to be at number 2 this year because you get one of these studs in your draft and you don't have to make the decision, right? One of these guys is going to land in your lap and it's an automatic smash. So that's exciting stuff. Let's look at our projection for Connor McDavid. We got him for 40 goals, 89 assists for 129 points. Bang. Love that. 287 shots, 71 hits. So he's got McKinnon beat there, 33 blocks and 44 power play points. That's a massive season for anybody. McDavid, that's just a regular season, right? This guy can do it all. I'm so excited to watch and see what he can do. We got to get this guy back to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm not even an Edmonton fan, but I do feel that McDavid's he's got to win the cup. He's got to get on there. So we'll see what happens after this year. I could absolutely see McDavid moving on to a different team that's going to give him a chance to win, right? Because if they can't do it again this year, like what else do they need to do, right? It's kind of cup or bust there in Edmonton as usual. All right, let's move on to the next player here. We got to talk about Big Papi, Austin Matthews, as our number 3. And yeah, I love Austin Matthews, and he does so much well in fantasy hockey, but he's never going to be ranked higher than number 3, really, with McDavid and McKinnon in the picture. And that's not a knock on Austin Matthews. It's just he's got 2 like studs in front of him there that are kind of blocking the way. One thing that Matthews does have over these other 2 guys, he puts the biscuit in the basket. He does that. He puts the lotion in the basket, all right? Or he gets the hose again. This guy might be the best goal scorer in the league currently. And I don't think that's a stretch to say. Obviously, last year was not a great example of that, but it's well known that he was battling injury pretty much all year. He wasn't himself. Shooting percentage and shots fell off at 5-on-5. On-ice shooting percentage dropped as well. His own struggles were probably a reason for that, right? He says he's fully healthy now, and I believe him. I think those big-time shots are coming back and likely 50-plus goals. Looking at the team surrounding him here, we got Mitch Marner's out of town, and it looks like Matias Michelli is first up to get that line 1 deployment with Matthew Nyes and Austin Matthews. When Max Domi gets healthy, he'll probably get a look there too, but I like Michelli in that spot. He's a really good facilitator. He's had a nice preseason so far as well, so there could be a fit there. I've said this in previous pods about Austin Matthews. I think out of necessity from what was going on last year, with injury and even line construction there, Matthews became the distributor out there to the benefit of players like Matthew Nyes. But hopefully that turns around this year. Matthews is the guy that needs to be at the end of those passes, and I believe he will be. I think that Nyes is the one that's going to have to adjust a little bit and pick up his facilitation game and get Matthews the puck in some good spots so we can get the biz. The other thing that keeps Austin Matthews down from the McDavid McKinnon tier is his point ceiling just isn't there, right? Like the peripheral stats are though. Like he's got big time shots. I love that. He has some room on the power play as well. I think he should crest the 30 power play point mark, which is something that he's never done. His career high power play points is 29, which he's reached twice. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Honestly, I feel like this is a 35 to 40 power play point guy, but it just hasn't happened for whatever reason, the way that power play was constructed, and might not happen this year. We've got a good projection for him, 32 points on the power play. That's nice, right? That feels like a good mark, but I feel like Matthews would be at the 30 power play point mark already if it wasn't for injuries. Nate and I projected him for 67 hits and 104 blocks. That's elite from a forward. That's what you want. He does that at the highest level, right? For a forward. And, then we have his shot total as well. We projected him for 345 shots there. He's just not going to come close to 120 points, I don't think. That's really it. And, out in these drafts, I've seen Matthews fall as far as 9. His ADP on Yahoo is 9.1. That's nuts, right? Like that's insane. Draft Matthews with confidence without Marner, no problem, right? I think he's going to have a big one. This is a player that can do it on his own. He can drive offense himself. He still has good players surrounding him and a really good second line with Tavares and Willie Nylander that can, take some of those offensive minutes as well. Like this guy's good to go. So I'm not concerned at all for Matthews as long as he is healthy. All right. Number 4, we got to talk about Uncle Leon Draisaitl. Oh yeah. The second man in Edmonton, the better man. He's coming off a great season. Paced for 122 points last year. Probably would have had a career high in goals if he didn't miss games last year. Damn it, I forgot to give that. Yeah, okay. Austin Matthews projection. Let's go to that really quick. I'm all over the place here. I'm discombobulated. Projection for Austin Matthews, 53 goals, 48 assists. That's 101 points. I gave you all the other details there, but 101 points for Matthews is pretty damn nice with over 50 goals. Book it. Okay. Now we're talking Uncle Leon. All right. Yeah, there's only a handful of players in this league that can maintain their shooting efficiency the way that Leon Draisaitl does. He's at the top of that list, and he routinely shoots 20% or higher. That's crazy stuff. Like when guys shoot over 20%, you're usually looking for a regression down. But Leon Draisaitl just stays right around that mark. I mean, if you look at his last few seasons here, last 4 seasons in particular, 19.8, 21.1, 18.9, 21.7. He shot over 21 in a season previous. He does that. He's really, really efficient. He's a great shooter. That said, too, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't in the back of my mind at times with him, right? This is a guy that does rely on efficiency. He is that guy. He is that efficient. I don't really see it regressing this year. I think he's going to play as the 2C. So I've got him as a center here in our list, not as a left winger. And he's also, as a center, he's been able to get it done with subpar line mates for a few seasons now, right? On-ice shooting percentage last year was down a bit at 5-on-5, but everything else was popping off. He had a career high in shots on goal per 60. Really nice to see from Dry. Individual Corsi 4 per 60 as well. He's tilting the ice out there. And near career numbers in IPP and individual scoring chances for per 60. And he spent most of last year on the second line there, right? With Victor Arvidsson and Vasily Podkolzin. That was his most played on line last season. So those are great numbers in that company. That's really nice. Lots to like there. And I already talked about this with McDavid. Without McDavid, we know what to expect, right? I think he's going to start the year with McDavid. It could be a hot start for Draisaitl. I'd love to see, this increase in shots that he's had keep up. His efficiency didn't drop at all with that happening. So that's awesome. That's why he almost had a career season here. The guy's just a unicorn. He's a unicorn out there. The only reason I have him at 4 beneath Austin Matthews is the lack of peripheral statistics, right? And the potential for his shots on goal to regress closer to career averages. We projected him for 43 hits, 31 blocks. But last year, he had 23 hits and 27 blocks in 71 games. That stinks, right? Help us out, Leon. This guy's 6'2", 210. He's twirling around out there like Elvis Stoico. My guy, we got to hit something, okay? But that's fine. That's not why you draft Draisaitl. What you are getting in spades, a bunch of points, power play points in particular. I think Leon and the Oilers in general have some headroom on the power play. Digging in on there, they were 11th in conversion last year, top 10 in expected goals for per 60. Still a wagon, right? Draisaitl specifically shot a lot less and generated less chances for whatever reason, but that could be an outlier. I think teams are probably figuring out a few tendencies of these players, but I still think Leon's numbers are a little bit low. We projected Draisaitl for 40 power play points, and I think there's headroom there. Whenever you get him in your drafts, it's going to be a smash, right? I think he's in for another big season, similar to McDavid. Just watch for some of those shenanigans towards the end of the season with load management. I think best case scenario for McDavid and Draisaitl, honestly, would be if the Oilers have a rough start and they're scrapping to make it into the playoffs. Then we're going to get full Draisaitl, full McDavid, and all the stats we need, right? But I'm not sure that's going to happen. I think either way, draft Draisaitl with confidence. A&G projection for him, 51 goals, 63 assists, 114 points. Bang. We like that. Okay. We got to talk about Mr. Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils. People love talking about Jack Hughes' injuries issues, right? And it's valid, I guess. It's definitely valid. His shoulders are probably rooted, right? He's had shoulder surgery twice in the last 2 seasons. But I don't get when people say that he's injury prone, right? Due to his play style. Like, what does that even mean? That doesn't make sense. The guy's had some bad luck. There's no question about that. He's declared himself fully healthy, right? Going into the season, he's had a full summer of rehab, training. I'm not going to skip over this player on the off chance that he trips and falls hard into the boards again, right? And ends the season. I think there's a very real chance that this guy pops the hell off. That said too, I think his first year under Sheldon Keefe as his head coach is shaved a little off the top in terms of his shot and chance generation and therefore his offensive ceiling, right? Keefe is the type of coach that demands more accountability in the defensive end. And I think he really pushes forwards, Jack Hughes as well, to get back into the play after rushes, right? So that fire wagon hockey that New Jersey played before Sheldon Keefe he's backed it down a little bit, right? And I do think that probably normalizes a little bit. I think that Keefe will let out the reins a little bit, but even if it doesn't, Hughes still paced for 93 points last year. Really nice stuff. This guy's just the ultimate play driver, right? We talk about play driving. We talk about zone entries that lead to scoring chances. We talk about rush play, rush shots. This guy does it all, right? He's a zone entry machine, almost always leading to scoring chances for his teammates, for himself. He's in the 100th percentile in chance and shot contributions in all three zones data. His only real downside is that he's inefficient. He's been a really inefficient shooter for pretty much his whole career. And I mean, that said too, like there's a nuclear option with him. What if he just all of a sudden figures it out, it becomes more accurate, or has a season where he's luckier, right? Just a little bit more puck luck. Now he's putting all these amazing shots and scoring chances. He's putting them in the net, right? So I just think that, there's that option there where he really just pops off and hits a switch. I just think that Hughes is a player that has 120 point upside, but it's going to be dependent on his efficiency and the efficiency of his teammates, right? It's not something we should expect. I do want to talk about the Devils' power play really quick. I think that's going to be red hot again this season. They were third in conversion last year, but number one in expected goals for per 60. And it wasn't even close. These guys were lapping the field. They generated a ton of chances. Hughes is the one leading the charge. And another thing, he's also been getting some PK time under Sheldon Keefe as well. So now there's some shorthanded points coming. I think if that continues, there's just so much to like about Jack Hughes this season. Then at even strength, he plays with Jesper Bratt, who we talked about in our top 10 right winger episodes. Another elite play driver, rush player, has great chemistry with Hughes. I can't be out on this player, injuries or otherwise. It would be nice, though, if he could finish the full season so we could see his true offensive potential and stop having these conversations about where to draft him, right? He belongs near the top, but I mean, I think this season, 8 to 12, anywhere in there is where you should be going in your drafts. If you get him any later than that, you get Jack Hughes in the second round, you're loving life, all right? Because this guy's going to be a smash if he stays healthy. Apples and Ginos projection, 39 goals, 60 assists, 99 points. We're looking at 310 shots, 10 hits. He's an old dancing boy, cowpoke. He doesn't do that. And 38 blocks, thank you. 37 power play points. I could see that going up as well. So lots to like about Jack Hughes. He's a fantasy beast. Okay. Before we move on, there's still time, folks. There's still time for you to get your biscuits over to the Apples and Ginos Patreon and get the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Guide 25-26 draft guide season. Yes, I messed up that, but that's fine. We got a bunch of stuff in here. 375 plus player projections, 32 team previews, all the top sleepers. Nate wrote a really great article about how to draft against like high level opponents. And I've read the thing like 3 times and I feel like I'm absorbing new things each time. Really good stuff. It's a great document. It's what we worked on all summer and I'm happy to get it out to you folks. Get in there, get it. All right. Patreon.com/ApplesGinos. Do it. If for some reason you can't afford this document, hit me up. Hit me up in the comments. Hit me up in my Twitter. Hit me up on Discord. We want you to smash. Your victories equal our victories. We want this document in people's hands so they can smash in fantasy hockey this season. Book it. All right. That hurt my throat, but it's worth it, damn it. Let's move on. We got to talk about our number 6 here, Jack Eichel of the Vegas Golden Knights. And I love that Jack Eichel is getting a glow up this offseason. It's great. People are taking him in the first round in a lot of drafts, and it makes absolute sense. I think that Eichel has 100-point potential. He's on a very strong Vegas squad that probably should contend for the Cup this year, and they just added Mitch Marner. And I've made this argument on previous pods already, but I think we're going to see a lot more of shooter Jack Eichel as opposed to the distributor that he was last year, especially if Marner plays on Eichel's line, which is kind of how they've been doing it here in preseason. Eichel's been an elite shooter in the past. But last year, his shots fell off. And just for reference, like the last 3 seasons at 5-on-5, check out these shots on goal per 60 numbers. 11.17, 10.14, 11.79, and then last year, 8.18. So quite a bit of a difference. That's significant, right? And it did work out well for the Golden Knights, especially players like Mark Stone, Ivan Barbashev had banner years. and Eichel was handling the facilitation duties. I could really see them running that line back and having Marner on line 2, like as the season goes here with Tomas Hertl and Pavel Dorofeyev. But maybe we don't see much of a bump at even strength here for Eichel. But I maintain that I think Eichel's going to get more shots and definitely more chances and shots on the power play with Marner in the fold. That top unit, I'm talking Vegas power play right now, super effective, right? Second overall in conversion. But Eichel in particular, he only scored 5 power play goals. 5. What? That makes no sense for a player with his kind of shooting talent and offensive ability. We've seen early iterations of the top power play here in Vegas, and they've been going with a 5-forward set, leaving Shea Theodore out in the cold and Mitch Marner quarterbacking, which is a choice, right? And it's great if they do that for Pavel Dorofeyev, right? I thought that was a guy that might get the boot. I thought Mark Stone's role on the power play might be in jeopardy. But so far, it's been Shea Theodore that's not been seeing that power play one time. So something to put in the back of your mind when you're doing your drafts. But with Marner out there, I think Eichel's going to get more shots. That's the point. I just expect him to be at the end of more passes with the man advantage. And I think he's going to hit for double-digit power play goals this year. Book that. I think that's happening. There's no way he's going for 5 goals again. So I think that grabbing Jack Eichel at pick 9 to 12 in the first round, that's money in the bank. I have him lower than Hughes here just due to the fact that I think Jack Hughes' ceiling is a lot higher than Jack Eichel's. Like I said, I think Hughes is good for 120 potentially if everything goes right. Eichel's around 100, right? Still, I like this pick to start your drafts. I think if you somehow get him in the second round, absolute smash. Let's look at the A&G projection for Jack Eichel. 35 goals, 60 assists, 95 points, 281 shots on goal, 30 hits, 65 blocks, which is pretty nice, and then 33 power play points to round it out. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for your service. Really nice player. Now let's get into some sad news. Bang. Alexander Barkov was my number 7 here. And yeah, we just got the news today. I'm not sure when I'm releasing this pod, but did just get the news today that Barkov is out for the season with a knee injury. That's unbelievable. First off, because I took him in Cacuffle in round 3. I took him in my other points league. I got him at nice value there, but yeah, it just stinks. I mean, that's one of the bad things about doing slow drafts is like, yeah, sometimes you can get burned with an injury here, and I absolutely did. So yeah, it's, it is what it is. That's fine. But yeah, it's just not what you want to see as a fantasy manager. Horrible for Alexander Barkov as well. Like, I'm talking fantasy. In reality, like, this guy just lost the season of his career in his prime. Terrible stuff. So really stinks. Not a great start, right? I had him at number 7 on my list here. Usually quite a safe pick. And it's funny, I just talked about Jack Hughes and his injury narrative, right? Barkov has that injury narrative as well. And, look what happened. I just refuse to believe that they're connected in any way, right? Like, this injury was just a normal play where he lost footing, splayed his legs out, and jacked his knee up, right? Like, you can't predict that. You can't go out and say, well, look, he did it again. It's like, why? Well, that makes no sense. So I don't like predicting injuries, and I really won't ever try and do that. And, if Barkov's back and healthy next year, I'll probably take another ride, right? Like, this is a great player, but yeah, this one really stings. In terms of who benefits, I think my guess is going to be Anton Lundell, right? He's going to move up to center line 1 there, potentially, get some time on power play 1. So that's going to pump up his fantasy value. And he did have a stretch there last year when Barkov was injured. Last year, he went for 9 points in the 8 games while Barkov was dealing with injury. I think that Lundell's worth drafting, right? It just stinks, right? We already got Matt Tkachuk out until December, January. I think that the Panthers dynasty here could be in jeopardy, but this is one of the deepest teams out there. So I would imagine that they're going to be able to weather the storm without their 2 top players. But really, I think it's going to hurt the rest of the Panther players for fantasy. And Barkov, like, this guy's a force in the defensive end. So how do they make up for that? I think he plays so well in the Panthers system, which is basically just dump the puck in, create chaos, retrieve the puck, whip the biscuit around until someone scores. And Barkov's just such an elite facilitator in that mold. So it's going to be interesting to see how players like the Sex Panther, Sam Reinhart, and Carter Verhaeghe fare without Barkov's ability to get them the puck. So, yeah. We did have a nice projection for him, 87 points, but that's all a moot point now. I think the moral of the story is you probably should grab Anton Lundell, hopefully at value in your drafts. All right. But unfortunately, then Lundell's not making the top 10 center list. Sorry, my man. Let's move on to our number 8 pick here. Sid the Kid Crosby. Yeah, lots of trade rumors surrounding Crosby this offseason. I'm not sure that it does happen, but if the Penguins get out to a really bad start, I think, it could become more of a reality, right? You look at Florida, they just lost Barkov. You think they wouldn't want someone like Sidney Crosby to join the team to try and get this third Stanley Cup in a row? Like, you bet sweet Bippy they would. They absolutely would. They are going to kick tires for sure. So, and it's going to be Crosby's decision, right? This guy's earned the right to go and do whatever the hell he wants, basically. So either way, I do think that we can bank on him to do what he's always done. With the Penguins, if he does stay offensively, like last year, they weren't that bad, right? Expected goals for was decent. It was 12th overall at 5-on-5, but their finishing let them down a bit. They finished actual goals at 22nd in conversion. Power play was good. It was 8th best in conversion after just a garbage year the season previous, right? We all, like Nate and I both talked about the Pittsburgh power play being a lot better last year, and it was 8th best. So, you got Crosby out there. It makes sense. I think that Crosby he's not really an exciting pick, obviously, at this point in his career, but the floor is really safe, right? And there's no reason to think that he can't continue to produce the way he has over the past few seasons. That line he's on, Brian Rust, Raquel. Oh, he's on a strange erotic journey from Milan to Minsk. And when he's not doing that, he's lining up on the left side there with Crosby and Rust. So, yeah, I think that's a really nice line. That's still completely reasonable. You still have Malkin on the second line, which, I'm not going to say that's great, but it's a second line, right, on the low end. But, yeah, and Ville Koivunen as well, I think, is kind of probably in for a decent season this year. That's a kind of a deep sleeper that I'm interested in. But it will be interesting to see if Rust or Raquel get traded this year, because there was a lot of rumors surrounding them. It could muddy the waters a bit. I think we all know Crosby as a player who makes his line mates better, and I think that would still be the case, right? But it is a concern, right? If he loses players the caliber of Rust and Raquel, like I said, Koivunen, Rutger McGroarty could get some time with Sydney this year, and that would definitely raise their respective fantasy floors. So I think just a word of caution with Crosby, just make sure you aren't reaching for him in drafts this season. I think the third round feels right. End of the second round, maybe. That's getting spicy. But I just think that's not about his potential value. That's more the uncertainty of his situation. And, if he, whether he moves to another team, is he going to be the number one option on another team at this point in his career? He probably should. He's still one of the best players in the world, but I would imagine it's more of a supplementary role. I don't see him getting traded to a team and then them rolling him out there for 20 plus minutes a night the way he gets in Pittsburgh. Maybe they do, but I'm having a hard time seeing that. And also, if he does stay in Pittsburgh, it's not a good team. It's a bad team. So, that's going to cap his offensive ceiling a little bit as well. But it's Crosby, right? We trust this player here. And I think that I'm happy to get him. I got him in, Nate did the Apples and Ginos. We call ourselves experts live draft last night. And I was in that draft. And I got Crosby in the 4th round. And that felt amazing. We've got this guy projected for 87 points, 33 goals, 54 assists, 87 points, 237 shots, 69 hits. That's nice. 38 blocks and 27 points on the power play. That'll play in the 4th round, in the 3rd round, late second. You're getting value from Crosby. It's just, yeah, I think that it's pretty safe to say that the ceiling days are over and the floor is still reasonable. So draft him appropriately and, get some Crosby in your life. Let's move on. Number 9, we got to talk about new captain of the Rangers, JT Miller. I think that he's going to have a nice bounce back here after a season filled with turmoil last year with the Vancouver Canucks. Miller's a player we should truly be excited about, I think. Last year was his absolute floor, in my opinion. He was struggling off the hop with Vancouver, ended up taking some personal time for whatever reason. We don't even know why. Then ultimately traded from the Canucks to the Rangers. Both the Canucks and Rangers are extremely bad vibes last year. And it's a situation that's really hard to glean anything from because we're looking at the worst case scenario. For both teams, I think the players' point production reflected that it was worst case scenario. Miller paced for 80 points, right? Which is the lowest that he's had in 4 seasons. Good news on the way. We got a coach here in New York in Mike Sullivan. I think he's an elite offensive coach. He has experience. And this team is still amazing, right? We still got Artemi Panarin, Vinny Tro. Actually, I got to play this thing for you. We got Vinny Tro.
I'm Vincent Trocheck from the New York Rangers, and you're listening to the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast.
Hell yeah. Vinny Tro's a good close friend of mine. All right. Thank you for doing that, Vinny Tro. I like to play that whenever I can. We got Zibanejad. We got Fox, right? We got elite goaltending in Shesterkin. They just lost a plot last season, the Rangers, and they were never able to turn it around. Miller, for fantasy, we know this. He brings a ton to the table. Big time hits, decent blocks, great power play points, which should potentially be higher here in New York. The Rangers should be a top 5 power play this upcoming year. Last year was an outlier. They were 28th, right, in conversion. And I don't even know how they did that. I don't think they can do it again. So I expect that to bounce back to the top third, right, of the league, with room to be in the top 5, I think, if they really get cooking. Rangers have a great fantasy schedule as well. 4th overall in off nights this season. Just so many reasons to get yourself some Rangers this year. And behind Panarin, Miller is your Huckleberry. This guy should be a target of yours. We got a really nice projection for him as well. Maybe even a little low. 32 goals, 52 assists, 84 points. One thing about Miller, doesn't shoot very much. So we got him for 178 shots, 191 hits. Yeah, beefer. 56 blocks, 33 power play points. I love that. And I do think that this is potentially a light and a safe projection. I think that we could see Miller hitting 90 this year pretty comfortably if things go the way that I think they will. But this is a nice, safe projection. Again, draft with confidence. JT Miller's your boy. Let's finish up the list. Number 10, Brayden Point. Another extremely safe pick in the 2nd or 3rd round of your drafts. Point is one of the premier players and playmakers in the NHL. And he's playing with Kucherov on top of that, right? That's crazy. So it's just, Point has shown himself to be a very efficient player, basically automatic on the power play. Like, this guy scored 20 power play goals in 2 seasons. He had 16 last year. It's just, that's going to happen year to year, right? Another thing, John Cooper really plays the hell out of his top line there in Tampa. So we know what to expect. Point's going to get buku minutes, buku power play time. That's something Point does really well. He's an elite puck rusher and possession player. Like I was mentioning, he shows out in metrics like controlled zone entries that lead to scoring chances, right? He does that. He's not just a supplemental piece to Kucherov there. Brayden Point makes that line better with his skill set and efficiency. So he's a big part of that, and a big reason why Kucherov is so successful as well, in my opinion. I think the downside for Brayden Point is that he doesn't bring the thunder. Guy doesn't hit, right? He doesn't hit, and his shot totals are going to leave something to be desired. Blocks are okay, right? They're not going to hurt you for a forward, but you can also get that elsewhere. I think the center only at this part of the draft can sometimes be an issue, right? Especially if you don't have utility spots in your league there. If you've drafted one of, the top centers in the 1st round there, like a Matthews or, Jack Hughes or Eichel, right? It's not going to feel great to draft Brayden Point in the 2nd or 3rd, right? Now you got 2 center onlys, but I don't know. It's worth it in some cases, right? It shouldn't scare you away from Brayden Point, because I think Brayden Point has 90-point upside as well. So, yeah, very safe player. Look at Apples and Ginos projection here. 46 goals, 41 assists, 87 points. We got him for 224 shots, 33 hits, 36 blocks, and 33 points on the power play. So I think for him to go even higher, it's going to be power play numbers that are really going to get him there. So that is the top 10 centers for points leagues. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think in the comments here. Hit us up on the Spotify comments on the pod if you're listening there. Would love to get your take on this list. Who you think should be higher, lower? Did I miss anybody? And that's points, right? Before I get into the category list here, I do want to just quickly mention a couple beefers. and underrated beefers, actually, in Elias Pettersson and Macklin Celebrini. Yeah, I just bring these guys to the table. I just want to spotlight them a little bit. We've got good projections for both of them, but I want to just let you know why they are players that I'll be targeting in category leagues, right? They bring a lot more to the table, and it's underrated. So for Pettersson, we've got him projected for 74 points. I think that's light. I really do believe that Pettersson is going to have a bounce back. I do believe that this is a point per game player. Will we see it this year? Maybe not, right? Well, he starts to get his legs back and get his confidence back, but that's in the wheelhouse. It's a guy that scored 100 points in his career, so he has the talent to do that. It's just been a rough go. But one of the things we can count on for Petey is really nice hit and block numbers for a forward. We've got him projected for 99 hits and 89 blocks. Bang! That's excellent stuff. Like that's he's probably third behind like Alex Tuck, Austin Matthews. Right now we're looking at Elias Pettersson for blocks. So in a league like Kakupful, the Keeping Karlsson league, they have blocks weighted pretty high. Other leagues that have high block, weighting in your points leagues, Pettersson, his value jumps up because he does that. So definitely don't be afraid of Pettersson this year. He's bringing a lot to the table. So over 200 shots as well. So he's doing the thing. Macklin Celebrini is a player I'm very excited about this year. Shows out in all the micro stats, all the offense generation, chance generation, shot contributions. He does it all, right? This guy's a zone entry machine as well. He's in the Jack Hughes mold, right? But he's better defensively. So I'm pretty excited about this player. And some people are calling him like a bust or like someone who we're drafting too high. And I really don't. I'm not here for that. I feel like you could pick him up in the 4th round, and that makes absolute sense. If you want to get real spicy, you could maybe get him in the 3rd round. And I don't think that it's going to be a big whiff at that point. I'm not saying do that, but I think he is the caliber of player that should go in at that value. We have him projected for 79 points. But in terms of category leagues, you're getting elite shots, 278, which I think he could smash. This guy could be a 300 shot guy at some point in his career, and then 63 blocks. I really like that. So it's the point totals. He's going to have good power play numbers, and then shots and blocks. That's something that Celebrini is bringing to the table really very well. So I just wanted to highlight those two players as players of interest in your category leagues. Now let's go into our full list here, recapping the top 10 centers in points leagues. McKinnon at number 1, McDavid number 2, Matthews number 3, Leon Draisaitl number 4, Jack Hughes at number 5, Jack Eichel at number 6, Barkov, RIP to your fantasy teams, number 7, number 8, Sidney Crosby, number 9, Miller, number 10, Point. If I had to name an 11th to round out the list, I'd go Macklin Celebrini for points leagues. For categories leagues, let's talk about it. Okay, we're looking at McKinnon still at number 1, obviously for the reasons we mentioned. McDavid number 2. I think that makes total sense. Austin Matthews at number 3. He's getting closer to these guys, but still because of the lack of offensive ceiling, he's not going to touch these guys in any format, really. Draisaitl at number 4. So the top 4 still remain the same. Top 5, actually, with Jack Hughes at number 5. I think something I do in cast leagues, and I've mentioned this in the other pods, you got to target offense first early on because that is the hardest category to cover. Goals, assists, power play points, those are the hardest categories to cover. So we got to try and lock it up early. I don't mind taking Jack Hughes, even though he has pretty much 0 periffs, hits and blocks. He doesn't do that, right? If you're in a PIMS league, he doesn't do that either. So yeah, you're shaving a little off the top, but I think it's worth it for the offensive ceiling. You can get your periffs later. This is where it starts to get a little different. Number 6, we're looking at JT Miller. He jumps up from 9 in the points leagues to number 6 in category leagues. And again, we talked about why. It's the hits, right? The power play points, the hits, the total points. He's doing that at an elite level. He's going to play a ton of minutes as well, so he'll be out there accruing those stats. And the reason I have him beneath Jack Hughes, again, is just the offensive ceiling. Miller's offensive ceiling, 100. Jack Hughes' offensive ceiling, 120. That's really it. That's the only reason. Because Miller is, if you took Miller over Hughes, that's totally fine. Makes sense. And like I said, they have a great fantasy schedule as well. At number 7, we had Barkov as well. Number 8, Jack Eichel. So he drops down 2 spots there in this league. Sorry, in this format. Just lack of periffs and the potential that his elite shots maybe don't come back, right? Crosby drops down to number 9. And then Elias Pettersson makes the list at number 10 for the reasons I mentioned. But that's it, folks. Those are our top 10 centers in fantasy hockey. I hope you enjoyed the list. Again, hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you think of that list. Did I miss anybody? Would you arrange it in a different way? I'd love to have a discussion with you. I'll definitely be commenting on your comments. So if you have any questions, hit me up. Also, reach out to me anytime on my X account, in the DMs, in our Discord. If you have any questions, you have a draft coming up, you want to bounce any ideas off me, this is the time to do that. And I'm making myself available for all of you out there. So feel free to hit me up. I will answer each and every question I get and try and help you win some leagues. All right. Because that's what we're here to do. We're here to get you some dubs. All right. And we're here to get some dubs ourselves. I got to redeem myself after last year. I had 1 win in like 7 leagues. This year's going to be different, folks. Much different. All right. Take it to the bank. Anyways. Join the Apples and Ginos Discord community. Link is in the description. We're approaching 1,800 fantasy hockey managers in there. It's a great place. We got so much going on in there. Great conversations. Really smart people. I learned stuff in there. And I'm like digging in on this stuff like crazy. And people come in there with stuff I was not aware of, and it's really helpful. So great resource for your fantasy hockey for the season, right? And we're actually going to do some fun stuff. I wanted to mention this, and Nate now will mention it as well. But this season, with our waiver wire shows, we do the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. We're going to do head-to-head streamer deathmatch, but we're also going to do pros versus Joes, where we're going to have a Discord channel that is simply a poll, and we'll have our listeners pick the player that they think will beat the players that Nate and I choose, and then we'll talk about it on the pod. It'll be just a nice little bit of engagement, and yeah, we can have some fun that way. So just yet another reason to get into our Discord. Do that. Hit us up over on YouTube, please. We've got a great channel. Things are popping off. We've had a great off season there. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment. It really helps us with the algorithm. But that's it, folks. That's it for this episode. I hope this helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard came from Natural Stat Trick, all 3 zones, advancedhockeystats.com, terrific free and paid resources. Many thanks to my brother for creating the music for the podcast and the videos. But until next time, folks, we really appreciate you. Celebrate your day. Bye for now.